In the entire world, one name stood above every billionaire, every politician, and every powerful businessman. That name was Ayaan Verma. Only 18 years old. Yet he owned more than 100 factories, international shipping companies, luxury hotels, tech corporations, oil investments, and private properties spread across multiple countries. People called him the young king of industry. World leaders respected him. Famous CEOs feared him. Stock markets reacted to his decisions. One signature from Ayaan could make a company rise overnight. And one sentence from him could destroy entire empires. But despite all the wealth, luxury, and power, a strange emptiness lived inside him. He had spent his entire life surrounded by fake smiles. Everyone respected his money. No one truly respected him. Late one rainy night, Ayaan stood alone inside his massive glass penthouse on the 70th floor. The city lights glowed beneath him like stars trapped on Earth. Behind him stood his loyal assistant, Marcus. "Sir, tomorrow's schedule is ready," Marcus said respectfully. 3 international meetings, 2 investor conferences, and the Dubai acquisition. "Cancel everything." Marcus froze. "Sir." Ayaan slowly turned around. For the first time in years, his eyes looked tired. "I want to disappear." Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean?" Ayaan walked toward the giant window again. "I'm tired of people bowing to my money. I want to know how the world treats a man who has nothing." The room fell silent. Marcus spoke carefully. "Sir, people worship you." A faint smile appeared on Ayaan's face. "They worship my bank account." The next morning, the biggest business empire in the world suddenly stopped hearing from its owner. No interviews. No meetings. No public appearances. The media exploded with rumors. Some said Ayaan had secretly left the country. Others claimed he was sick. Some even believed he had been kidnapped. But the truth was something nobody could imagine. Because at that exact moment, the world's youngest billionaire was standing in the middle of a crowded street wearing torn clothes. His expensive watches were gone. His designer suits had disappeared. His hair was messy. His face looked tired. And in his hands was an old metal cup. No one recognized him. For the first time in his life, Ayaan Verma looked like a homeless beggar. And strangely, he felt free. Cars passed by without stopping. People ignored him. Some laughed at him. Others insulted him. Hours passed. Not a single person treated him like a human being. That was the moment Ayaan finally understood something terrifying. The world did not love people. It loved status. That evening, heavy rain started pouring across the city. Ayaan walked through the streets silently while cold rain soaked his clothes. Suddenly, a black luxury car stopped near him. The back door opened. A young woman stepped out. She looked around 23 years old. Beautiful. Elegant. But her eyes carried stress and exhaustion. This was Elena Hart, the daughter of Hart Industries, a once powerful company now standing on the edge of bankruptcy. Thousands of employees were about to lose their jobs. Banks were demanding money. Investors were abandoning them. And Elena was desperately trying to save her family's collapsing empire. As she walked toward a nearby building, her heel suddenly snapped. She nearly fell. Ayaan instinctively stepped forward and caught her before she hit the ground. For a second, their eyes met. Elena quickly pulled away. "Thanks," she said coldly. Then she noticed his torn clothes. Her expression immediately changed. Disgust. "Oh." She stepped back slightly. "You're homeless." Ayaan stayed quiet. But before he could leave, Elena's phone rang. She answered nervously. "Yes." Her face turned pale. "What do you mean the investors backed out?" She listened silently, then slowly lowered the phone. Tears formed in her eyes. "Our company is finished." For the first time, Ayaan saw genuine fear inside someone's eyes. Not fear of losing luxury. Fear of losing everything. Elena sat inside her car silently, staring into nothing. Then suddenly, an idea entered her mind. Crazy, desperate, but possibly her only chance. She looked at Ayaan again. A poor man. A nobody. Someone society would never notice. And that was exactly what she needed. She stepped out of the car again. "You," she said. Ayaan looked at her calmly. "How would you like a place to stay?" Ayaan remained silent. Elena crossed her arms. "I need a husband." Ayaan blinked slowly. "You're serious?" "Completely." She took a deep breath. "My company is collapsing. The board wants me married to stabilize the business image. Investors trust family-oriented leadership." She looked directly into his eyes. "But I don't want a real relationship." Ayaan quietly listened. "You'll live in my house," Elena continued. "You'll pretend to be my husband in public. And in return, I'll feed you, give you clothes, a room, safety." Ayaan stared at her for several seconds, then asked softly, "And what do you get?" Elena's voice became cold. "A shield." Those words told him everything. She did not love him. She did not even respect him. She simply needed someone she could use. But strangely, Ayaan accepted. "Fine," he said quietly. Elena looked relieved. That same night, the richest man in the world entered the Hart mansion as a homeless beggar pretending to be a husband. But the moment they walked inside, the nightmare began. Elena's father looked at Ayaan with pure disgust. "What is this?" Elena nervously answered, "My husband." The entire dining room went silent. Then her younger brother started laughing uncontrollably. "You married a beggar." Her mother looked horrified. "Have you lost your mind?" Her father walked toward Ayaan slowly. "You filthy parasite." Ayaan remained calm. "You think you deserve to stand inside my house?" Elena quickly interrupted. "This marriage is temporary." But the damage was done. From that day onward, everyone inside the mansion treated Ayaan worse than garbage. Servants insulted him. Family members mocked him. They called him street rat, worthless trash, sore worm. Sometimes they intentionally threw food near him like he was an animal. And every single time, Ayaan stayed silent. Because none of them knew the truth. The man they were humiliating was secretly powerful enough to buy their entire bloodline 10 times over. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And slowly, without anyone realizing, Ayaan began secretly saving Elena's company. Anonymous investments started appearing. Business deals mysteriously succeeded. Competitors suddenly backed away. Investors returned. The company's stock slowly began rising again. Everyone praised Elena for being a genius businesswoman. But behind the shadows, Ayaan was controlling everything. Silently, patiently, and despite all the humiliation, he continued protecting her. Because somewhere deep inside, he had started loving the woman who only saw him as a tool. But Ayaan had no idea. That love would eventually turn into the most dangerous revenge of his life. 5 years passed. And during those 5 years, the impossible happened. Hart Industries rose from the ashes like a dying empire reborn. The same company that had once stood at the edge of bankruptcy was now dominating international markets again. Its stock prices exploded. Investors fought for partnerships. Banks that once rejected Elena now begged to work with her. Business magazines called her the Iron Queen, the woman who defeated collapse, the genius CEO who saved Hart Industries. But nobody knew the truth. Not the media, not the investors, not even Elena herself. Because behind every successful deal, behind every mysterious miracle, behind every competitor that suddenly disappeared, was Ayaan. The man everyone still called worthless. Every night after the family went to sleep, Ayaan sat alone in a small dark room inside the mansion, secretly managing billion-dollar operations from a hidden laptop. He never used his real name. No one ever saw his face during meetings. He operated through shadows, anonymous accounts, private proxies, invisible influence. And slowly, he rebuilt Elena's empire piece by piece. Not because he needed money. He already had more wealth than entire countries. He did it because somewhere along the way, he had fallen deeply in love with her. Even though she barely looked at him. Even though she treated him like a burden. Even though she never once asked about his pain. Ayaan still protected her like she was the most precious thing in his world. But love built on lies always becomes dangerous. One cold winter night, Elena returned home from a massive business celebration. The mansion was glowing with lights. Music echoed through the halls. Her family celebrated another major victory. Champagne bottles opened. Everyone praised Elena non-stop. "You saved this family. You're a miracle. You rebuilt everything." Her father proudly raised his glass. "To my daughter, the woman who brought Hart Industries back to life." Everyone clapped. Everyone smiled. Except Ayaan. He stood quietly in the corner wearing simple clothes while servants walked past him like he was invisible. Then Elena noticed him. Her expression immediately changed with irritation. "What are you doing here?" Ayaan calmly answered. "I live here." Her younger brother laughed loudly. "Look at this stray dog acting important." The entire room burst into laughter. Elena walked toward Ayaan angrily. "We have important guests here. Don't embarrass me." Ayaan looked into her eyes silently. For 5 years, he had protected her from destruction. And yet she still looked ashamed to stand near him. "Go back to your room," she said coldly. Ayaan quietly obeyed. As he walked away, he heard Elena's boyfriend laughing downstairs. Yes, boyfriend. Because despite being legally married to Ayaan, Elena secretly spent time with another man named Daniel Royce. Daniel was handsome, rich, and arrogant. Unlike Ayaan, Daniel came from high society. Elena loved being seen with him in public. But nobody questioned it. Because in everyone's eyes, her marriage to Ayaan was meaningless. That same night, Ayaan walked past Elena's bedroom and suddenly froze. The door was slightly open. Inside the room, Elena was laughing while sitting beside Daniel. Wine glasses rested on the table. Soft music played quietly. Daniel smirked. "I still can't believe you married that homeless loser." Elena rolled her eyes. "It was temporary." "Then why keep him?" She sighed. "He's useful." Daniel laughed cruelly. "That thing? Useful?" Elena leaned back calmly. "He makes people pity me. Investors trust sacrifice stories. A successful woman carrying a worthless husband creates sympathy." Ayaan stood outside the door silently. Every word pierced deeper than a knife. Inside the room, Daniel smirked again. "You should throw him out already." Elena took a sip of wine. "Soon." Then she laughed softly. "Honestly, sometimes I forget he even exists." For the first time in years, something inside Ayaan cracked. Not anger. Not sadness. Something colder. The realization that the woman he loved never saw him as human. The next morning, Elena's mother insulted him during breakfast again. "Why are you sitting here? Eat in the kitchen." Her brother smirked. "Maybe the beggar wants silver plates today." Her father added coldly. "You should be grateful we let trash like you stay in this house." Normally, Ayaan stayed silent. But this time, he slowly placed his spoon down. The entire table became quiet. Then for the first time in 5 years, he spoke with a different tone. Cold. Sharp. Dangerous. "One day," Ayaan said calmly, "you'll regret the way you treated me." Elena's father laughed loudly. "You?" His brother joined in. "What will you do?" Beg us to death." The family burst into laughter again. But Elena noticed something strange. For a brief second, Ayaan's eyes no longer looked weak. They looked powerful. Terrifyingly powerful. But the feeling disappeared quickly. That afternoon, Elena attended an important corporate conference downtown. Meanwhile, inside his small room, Ayaan made a single phone call. The moment the other side answered, dozens of executives across the world instantly stood up in panic. "Sir." Ayaan's voice became emotionless. "Prepare everything." "Yes, sir." "It's time." The man on the phone hesitated carefully. "Does that mean your identity will finally return?" Ayaan looked out the window toward the city skyline. "Yes." For 5 years, he had tolerated humiliation. For 5 years, he had hidden his empire. For 5 years, he had loved a woman who never valued him. But now, the billionaire in rags was waking up again. And when powerful men stop being patient, entire worlds collapse. A few days later, Elena's father announced exciting news during dinner. Hart Industries has finally been invited to the Blackthorn Royal Gala. Everyone gasped. The Blackthorn Gala was the most exclusive business event in the world. Only elite billionaires, royalty, and global industry leaders received invitations. For Hart Industries, this invitation could change everything. Elena looked shocked. "That's impossible." Her father smiled proudly. The chief guest himself requested high-potential companies. Daniel smirked confidently. "This is our chance to connect with the biggest businessman alive." Elena nodded excitedly. "If we gain his support, our company could triple in value." Her father looked serious. "But remember one thing." Everyone listened carefully. The chief guest hates disrespectful people. One mistake can destroy everything. Ayaan quietly continued eating. Then Elena looked at him coldly. "You're not coming." Her mother instantly agreed. "We can't take a beggar to an event filled with billionaires." Daniel laughed. He'd probably get arrested at the entrance. Everyone mocked him again. But this time, Ayaan simply smiled faintly. Because none of them understood one thing. The chief guest, they were desperately hoping to impress, was him. And very soon, the family that called him garbage was about to discover who had truly been sitting inside their house all these years. The night of the Blackthorn Royal Gala finally arrived. The entire city looked alive. Luxury cars filled the glowing streets. Private helicopters circled above the massive royal hotel where the event was being held. World-famous businessmen, celebrities, politicians, and billionaires stepped onto the grand red carpet while cameras flashed non-stop. Inside the Hart mansion, everyone was preparing nervously. Elena stood in front of her mirror wearing a stunning black designer gown covered in diamonds. For the first time in years, she looked hopeful. Because tonight could change everything. If they managed to impress the mysterious chief guest, Hart Industries could become one of the most powerful companies in the world. Her father adjusted his expensive suit proudly. "This is our biggest opportunity." Daniel smiled confidently beside Elena. "Relax. Once we build connections tonight, we'll dominate the market." Meanwhile, upstairs in his small room, Ayaan quietly buttoned an old grey shirt. No luxury suit. No expensive watch. No signs of power. Just the same poor man everyone hated. A servant suddenly entered his room. "You're still here." Ayaan looked at him calmly. The servant smirked. "Miss Elena said you're not allowed to attend." "I know." The servant threw a small bag onto the bed. "Take this trash out before we return." Then he left laughing. Ayaan stared at the garbage bag silently. 5 years. 5 entire years of humiliation. 5 years of pretending to be weak. 5 years of protecting people who destroyed his dignity every single day. But tonight, everything would change. Downstairs, Elena and her family prepared to leave. As they walked toward the main entrance, Elena noticed Ayaan standing quietly near the staircase. Her expression instantly darkened. "Why are you standing there?" Ayaan calmly answered, "I'm going too." The entire family froze. Then Daniel burst into laughter. "You?" Elena's father looked furious. "Have you completely lost your mind? You'll embarrass us in front of the entire world." Elena crossed her arms angrily. "You are not coming." Ayaan stepped forward slowly. "Why?" "Because you don't belong there." For a brief second, silence filled the mansion. Then Ayaan asked quietly, "And who decides where I belong?" Elena looked irritated. "Stop acting difficult." Daniel smirked. "Maybe the beggar wants free food." Everyone laughed again. But this time, Ayaan smiled. A calm, dangerous smile. "Fine," he said softly. "I'll meet you there." Elena rolled her eyes. As if security would even let you near the entrance. Moments later, the family left in luxury cars while Ayaan remained behind. The second the mansion gates closed, everything changed. A black armored limousine suddenly entered the driveway. Then another. And another. Dozens of luxury vehicles lined outside the mansion like a royal convoy. The servants froze in shock. Men in black suits stepped out simultaneously. Elite security agents. One of them quickly opened the limousine door respectfully. Ayaan calmly walked outside. The moment he appeared, every guard lowered their heads. "Welcome back, sir." For the first time in 5 years, the real Ayaan Verma had returned. Gone were the torn clothes. Gone was the weak appearance. Now he wore a perfectly tailored black suit worth more than most people's houses. A diamond watch shimmered on his wrist. His hair was perfectly styled. His eyes no longer looked soft. They looked powerful, cold, untouchable. One bodyguard spoke carefully. "The entire gala is waiting for your arrival, Mr. Verma." Ayaan entered the limousine silently. As the convoy drove through the city, people stopped and stared. Traffic was cleared instantly. Police escorts surrounded the vehicles. News reporters rushed toward the streets. Because everyone recognized the symbol on the cars. The symbol of the Verma global empire. The largest business empire on Earth. Inside the gala hall, the Hart family stood among hundreds of elites feeling nervous and excited. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above them. Royal musicians played soft classical music. Everywhere they looked, billionaires shook hands and discussed million-dollar deals. Elena whispered quietly, "This place is unbelievable." Her father nodded. "Behave carefully. One mistake here could destroy us." Suddenly, the lights inside the massive ballroom dimmed. The music stopped. Everyone turned toward the grand entrance. Then a voice echoed through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, the chief guest has arrived." Instantly, every powerful person inside the ballroom stood up. The giant golden doors slowly opened. And then, Ayaan walked in. The entire hall exploded into applause. World leaders smiled at him. Billionaires lowered their heads respectfully. Famous CEOs rushed forward nervously. "Elena." Daniel whispered shakily. "That's." Her face turned completely pale. "No." Her father's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The man entering the ballroom like a king. The man every billionaire feared. The man they desperately wanted to impress. Was the same beggar they insulted every day. Ayaan walked through the crowd calmly while security surrounded him. No emotion appeared on his face. It was as if he had never known them. One billionaire shook his hand respectfully. "Mr. Verma, it's an honor." Another added nervously, "The market has been waiting for your return." Cameras flashed non-stop. People whispered everywhere. "That's Ayaan Verma. The youngest billionaire alive. The owner of Verma Global." Elena felt dizzy. Her entire body trembled. 5 years. For 5 entire years. The richest man in the world had been living inside her house. Sleeping in a tiny room. Eating insults every day. Being treated worse than a servant. And she never realized it. Daniel spoke quietly. This has to be fake. But deep inside, they all knew the truth. Suddenly, Elena's father forced a smile onto his face. We should greet him. The family nervously walked toward Ayaan. But before they could reach him, security guards blocked their path. You cannot approach Mr. Verma without permission. Elena quickly spoke. There must be a misunderstanding. He's my husband. The guards exchanged confused looks. One of them spoke into an earpiece. A few seconds later, the answer came. The guard stepped aside immediately. Mr. Verma says she may approach alone. Elena slowly walked toward Ayaan while everyone watched. For the first time in years, she felt fear around him. Real fear. Ayaan calmly sipped his drink without looking at her. Elena. His voice sounded colder than ice. She struggled to speak. You're really Ayaan Verma. Yes. Her eyes filled with shock. Why? Ayaan finally looked directly at her. And for the first time, she understood how dangerous he truly was. I wanted to know, he said quietly, if someone could love me without my money. Elena's lips trembled. Ayaan. But before she could continue, he interrupted softly. And now I know the answer. Those words hit harder than any scream. Behind them, her family stood frozen in terror. Because suddenly, every insult they had ever spoken echoed back inside their minds. Street rat. Trash. Sore worm. Worthless parasite. But the parasite standing before them could destroy their entire existence with a single command. And deep down, they realized something horrifying. The man they humiliated for 5 years had finally stopped forgiving them. The atmosphere inside the ballroom became suffocating. Hundreds of powerful people watched silently as Elena stood face to face with the man she had humiliated for 5 years. But now, he no longer looked like the quiet beggar she controlled. He looked untouchable, dangerous, like someone who could destroy entire empires without raising his voice. Elena's breathing became uneven. Ayaan, please listen. Listen, he interrupted calmly. His cold eyes locked onto hers. For 5 years, I listened. The ballroom remained silent. No one dared interrupt him. I listened when your family called me trash. Ayaan slowly stepped closer. I listened when your father treated me worse than a dog. Another step. I listened when your boyfriend laughed at me inside your bedroom. Elena's face lost all color. You heard that. A faint smile appeared on Ayaan's face. Every word. Her hands started trembling. Around them, the Hart family looked horrified. Daniel quietly stepped backward, trying to avoid attention. But Ayaan noticed him instantly. You. Daniel froze. Ayaan stared directly into his eyes. The man who enjoyed mocking a beggar. Daniel forced a nervous laugh. Mr. Verma, this is all just a misunderstanding. Do not speak. The temperature in the room seemed to drop instantly. Daniel went silent. Even the billionaires standing nearby looked uncomfortable. Because everyone knew one terrifying truth about Ayaan Verma. He was calm. Until he wasn't. Elena tried again. Ayaan, I didn't know who you were. Ayaan looked at her emotionlessly. That's exactly the problem. Those words shattered her completely. Because deep down, she understood what he meant. If she had known he was a billionaire, she would have treated him differently. Kinder. Softer. More respectfully. And that realization disgusted her. For the first time in her life, Elena realized she had failed as a human being. Ayaan slowly removed a folded document from his suit pocket. Then handed it to her. Elena looked down. Her heart nearly stopped. Divorce papers. The entire ballroom erupted into whispers. No. Her voice cracked. Ayaan, please. But he remained emotionless. You once said I was useful. He looked directly into her eyes. Now I'm done being used. Elena felt tears forming instantly. Ayaan, I know we made mistakes. Mistakes. For the first time that night, real anger appeared in his voice. You destroyed a man who loved you. The ballroom fell silent again. Even Elena's father lowered his head in shame. Because every single word was true. Ayaan continued. I gave your family everything. Flashbacks filled Elena's mind. The mysterious investors. The sudden business recoveries. The impossible contracts. The competitors disappearing overnight. Her company surviving every crisis. It was all him. All these years. The man she insulted had secretly protected her from ruin. While she laughed at him. Used him. Ignored him. Her tears finally fell. You saved us. Ayaan's face remained cold. And you destroyed me. Those words broke something inside her completely. For the first time, she truly understood the weight of what she had done. Not because he was rich, but because he had genuinely loved her. And she had treated that love like garbage. Meanwhile, Elena's father suddenly stepped forward desperately. Mr. Verma, please, we can fix this. Ayaan slowly turned toward him. The older man's confidence completely disappeared. 5 years earlier, he had screamed insults at Ayaan without fear. Now he could barely maintain eye contact. You called me a sore worm, Ayaan said quietly. The old man's face turned pale. You threw away my gift during your birthday. Ayaan's voice remained calm. But do you know what that gift actually was? The man stayed silent. Ayaan reached into his pocket and placed a small broken object onto the table nearby. It was the shattered watch Elena's father had destroyed months ago. Everyone looked confused. Then Ayaan spoke. That watch was one of only 3 ever made in the world. Gasps spread across the ballroom. It was worth $12 million. Elena's father nearly collapsed. $12 million. And he had smashed it in front of everyone while calling Ayaan worthless. Ayaan stared at him coldly. You destroyed something priceless because you judged the hands holding it. No one could speak. The humiliation was unbearable. Suddenly, Ayaan's phone rang. One of his executives spoke through the line nervously. Sir, should we proceed? Ayaan glanced at Elena. For a brief second, pain flashed inside his eyes. Because despite everything, part of him still loved her. But then he remembered the laughter, the insults, the betrayal, the years of humiliation. His face became cold again. Yes. That single word changed everything. Across the city, executives immediately began moving. Investments vanished. Contracts were cancelled. Banks withdrew support. Stockholders panicked. Partnerships disappeared within minutes. Because Hart Industries had never truly recovered on its own. It survived because Ayaan allowed it to survive. And now, he was letting it die. Inside the ballroom, Elena's phone suddenly vibrated non-stop. Then her father's. Then Daniel's. Everyone looked confused. Elena answered shakily. Yes. The blood drained from her face. What? Her father grabbed his own phone. No, this can't be happening. One of the board members screamed through the speaker. Our stock is crashing. Another voice shouted. The banks are freezing everything. Another yelled. Investors are pulling out. Sir, we're finished. Elena looked at Ayaan with horror. You're destroying us. Ayaan stared at her silently, then answered with the coldest words she had ever heard. No. He slowly took the divorce papers from her shaking hands and placed a pen on top. I'm simply stopping myself from saving you. Elena broke down crying. For the first time in 5 years, the powerful CEO disappeared, and only a devastated woman remained. Ayaan, please. She grabbed his arm desperately. Don't do this. But Ayaan gently removed her hand. The movement was calm, yet final. You stopped seeing my value long ago. He looked into her tear-filled eyes. Now you'll understand what losing me feels like. Then he walked away. The ballroom split apart as people moved aside for him. No one dared stop him. No one dared speak. Because everyone inside that hall understood one terrifying reality. The king had finally taken back his throne. And the people who mocked him were now watching their entire world burn. Behind him, Elena collapsed onto the floor crying while her family stood frozen in horror. Their empire was collapsing again. But this time, there was nobody left to save them. 3 months later, Hart Industries no longer existed. The once powerful company that dominated international markets had completely collapsed. Office buildings were seized by banks. Factories shut down overnight. Luxury cars disappeared. Employees resigned. Investors vanished. News channels called it the fastest corporate collapse in modern history. But only a few people knew the real reason behind the disaster. Ayaan Verma. The man they insulted for 5 years. The man they never valued until it was too late. Rain poured heavily across the city as Elena sat alone inside a tiny apartment on the edge of downtown. Gone were the luxury mansions. Gone were the servants. Gone were the designer dresses and expensive parties. Now, the former Iron Queen lived in silence surrounded by unpaid bills and regret. The television played quietly in the background. A news reporter spoke with excitement. Verma Global has officially become the most powerful business empire in history. CEO Ayaan Verma has reclaimed full control after disappearing for nearly 6 years. Elena slowly looked at the screen. And there he was. Ayaan. Standing confidently in front of cameras wearing a black suit while the entire world admired him. People respected him. Feared him. Praised him. But Elena saw something nobody else noticed. Sadness. Hidden deep inside his eyes. Because despite everything, the man still carried pain. She slowly turned the television off. Tears filled her eyes again. Every night was the same. Memories haunted her endlessly. The day he caught her from falling in the rain. The quiet way he listened to everyone's insults. The calm patience in his eyes. The countless times he protected her without asking for credit. And the horrifying realization that she had destroyed the only person who ever truly loved her. Not for beauty. Not for money. Not for status. But for her. Meanwhile, across the city, Ayaan stood alone inside his enormous office overlooking the skyline. The room was silent except for the sound of rain hitting the windows. Marcus entered carefully. "Sir." Ayaan didn't turn around. "What is it?" Marcus hesitated. "We've received another request from Elena Hart." Silence. "She wants to meet you." Ayaan slowly closed his eyes. For 3 months, she had been trying to contact him non-stop. Letters, emails, calls, messages. He ignored all of them. Not because he hated her, but because seeing her again would reopen wounds he was trying to bury. Marcus spoke softly. "She comes to the building almost every day." Ayaan finally turned around. His face looked colder now. Older. Pain changes people. She should move on. Marcus lowered his head slightly. "With respect, sir. I don't think she can." Ayaan looked toward the rainy skyline again. Neither could he. But some broken things cannot be repaired. Especially trust. That same evening, Elena sat outside Verma Global headquarters under heavy rain. Security guards watched her with pity. Her clothes were soaked. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. But she refused to leave. Hours passed. Finally, the main entrance opened. Ayaan stepped outside surrounded by security. The moment Elena saw him, She immediately stood up. Ayaan. The guards moved forward, but Ayaan raised his hand slightly. They stopped instantly. Rain poured heavily between them. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Elena slowly walked closer. Her voice trembled. I'm sorry. Ayaan stayed silent. Tears mixed with rain on her face. I know apologies can't fix what I did. Still no response. Elena looked directly into his eyes. But I need you to know something. Her voice broke completely. I loved you. A faint painful smile appeared on Ayaan's face. No, he said quietly. You loved who you thought I became. Those words pierced her heart instantly. Because once again, he was right. Elena cried harder. I was stupid. I was selfish. I judged you because you looked weak. Her body shook uncontrollably. And now I would give everything just to go back. Ayaan stared at her silently while rain fell around them. Part of him wanted to hold her, to forgive her, to erase everything and start again. But another part remembered the humiliation, the loneliness, the nights he sat silently while she laughed with another man. Love alone was no longer enough. Finally, Ayaan stepped closer. Elena's heart raced hopefully. But his next words destroyed her completely. I did love you. His voice was calm, real, honest. In fact, I loved you more than anyone in my life. Elena began crying uncontrollably. But the version of me that loved you. Ayaan looked away briefly. Died inside that mansion. The world seemed to stop. Even the rain felt silent. Elena covered her mouth as sobs escaped her. Because deep down, she knew this was the end. Not because he stopped caring, but because she broke something too deeply. Ayaan slowly removed his wedding ring. For years, he had continued wearing it. Even after the divorce. Even after the betrayal. Because despite everything, part of him still held on to the memories. Now, he gently placed the ring into Elena's trembling hand. This belongs to the past now. Elena stared at the ring like her entire world had shattered. Ayaan, please. But he slowly stepped back. And for the first time, there was no anger in his eyes. Only sadness. I hope one day you become happy. Then he turned around and walked toward his car. Elena collapsed onto her knees, crying as the vehicle disappeared into the rain. And this time, he never looked back. Months later, Elena started working a normal office job in a small company. No luxury, no fame, no power. For the first time in her life, she understood how ordinary people lived. And strangely, that pain changed her. She became kinder, humbler, quieter. She started helping struggling workers anonymously, paid medical bills for employees, donated food secretly, not for praise, not for image, but because guilt had transformed her. One evening, while leaving work, she noticed an old homeless man sitting alone near the sidewalk. People ignored him as they passed by. Years ago, she would have ignored him too. But now, she quietly walked toward him and handed him food and money. The old man looked shocked. Why are you helping me? Elena smiled sadly. Because once. Her eyes filled with tears. I failed to recognize someone priceless. Far away across the city, Ayaan stood alone inside his penthouse watching the sunset. The world still saw him as unstoppable. The king of business. The billionaire who controlled empires. But deep inside, one truth remained. Money can buy loyalty. Power can buy obedience. But genuine love only appears once. And if destroyed, sometimes even the richest man in the world cannot bring it back.